second mantra, know that by the yoga of Shraddha, Bhakti and Dhyana, not by activity, refers to the mechanical, ritualistic work. Most of them who perform the rituals, they perform it as an end in itself. So therefore, he says, the karma, which is the ritualistic activity, which is invariably desired, you don't get to the self through na karmanana, na prajaya, nor by progeny, not by merely being born into a particular environment, by being born into a particular lineage. It doesn't necessarily qualify you to the path of the self. And then in the conclusion of that mantra, tyagena dhanena tyagenaike amrutatvamanashuhu. Anashuhu, they have attained, some have attained by the renunciation of wealth. As we have always understood and maintained, renunciation of wealth, it is not getting rid of your wealth, it is not to get rid of your possessions, but it's rather to get rid of your attachments to wealth. And the only way you will get rid of your attachment to wealth is by getting rid of your false value to wealth. So it is to give up your false values, your attachments to wealth. It is not renouncing the wealth, it is not renouncing the world, but it is renouncing a false attachment to it. And how do you get rid of the false attachment is by developing the right value. And what is the right value one should have for wealth? See, it's very difficult when one is pursuing wealth right through one's life. It is rather difficult to have a right value for it, because that seems to be the driving force, isn't it? As in the Bhaja Govindam, we learn the two motivations. He says one is to dukkha nivritti. You are acquiring wealth to avoid future sorrow. So you're constantly driven through acquisition. Now, while you are acquiring, it's rather difficult to have a right value to that wealth when you're pursuing it. In fact, in order to have a right value while you're pursuing it, you need to have something that runs parallel along with it. Only when that thought runs parallel along with it, perhaps it will lend a certain vision, a certain charm, so that that which you are pursuing doesn't, or you don't develop an attachment to it, a false value to it. What I'm saying is, as long as you have this wisdom constantly being enriched, as long as you keep enriching yourself with this wisdom, you will be able to look at wealth, look at world from a different perspective. But a person who lacks this wisdom will fall a prey to the very desire to acquire. So there's nothing wrong with acquiring, but what is wrong is falling a prey to that acquisition. And when do you fall a prey is when you have a false value to it. So what is the right value one should have for wealth? We have gone through it, we have heard it in different contexts, but since he mentions it, I just thought we should remind ourselves again, what is the right value one should have for wealth? How you gain it is through wisdom. To begin with, I'll ask US.
When you divinize wealth, it gives you a value to the wealth in all your undertakings.
You divinize wealth, divinize it with wisdom. That's what you're putting in a different language. But what is the right value when you divinize wealth? What's the right value you give to it?
You are not attached to it.
The result is you're not attached to it, but what is the right value?
It's not the means, just the means. It's not the end. And then just divinizing, it's not an end in itself.
It shouldn't be an end in itself. It's just a means.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What should be the right value towards wealth? Amitama.
Hari Om Guruji.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so the right value, just like what Ushama said, for me, I think I'll say it's just serves a functional, it's a tool. It's something to get us by. So it is not like the end in itself, which Ushama mentioned. It's something that we need for our survival, our existence. So not to be attached to it as a goal or an end in itself. So it serves a functional value, something to get us by. Yeah.
Right. In fact, both of you put it in a common language, and Lakshmi has spelled it out. In fact, the moment we talk of wealth, we should understand it as a gross commodity. It is something which is a gross, tangible commodity, which can only be exchanged with anything gross. It's a tangible gross. Like with wealth, you can only buy sense objects to your senses. Tell me anything that wealth can buy beyond the sense objects. It's an interesting self-analysis one could do. a gross commodity which can be exchanged for sense objects for your senses. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. Now we are talking of what should be my perception to it. So put it at its place so that you don't give it a greater value than what it deserves. Okay. Yes, Sushmama.
Guruji, can you hear me?
Yes.
Guruji, in my simple way, I take it this way. If one has the capacity to earn, you earn as much as you can with your hard work, but keeping with your basic needs, you should be able to help other people and give away and help as many people as you like. As I once read somewhere, "Do haathon se kumao aur 1000 haathon se baanto." So if you can use that wealth to sort of bring happiness to lots of other people, just keeping enough for your needs, I think to me that means renunciation of wealth and not getting attached to it.
Correct. Correct. In fact, when you have this understanding of what place it has in one's life and what it can bring to you, and then you develop a certain amount of, you don't end up, see, as everybody does. Sad part is majority of humanity are caught up in this attachment to wealth. Why? Because you're accumulating. Don't tell me you're not accumulating. You are seriously accumulating. And yet we talk philosophically that, yeah, we have to give up wealth. The moment you are, I agree with you. So the degree of accumulation is directly proportional to the degree of your attachment. The more attached you are, you will not be able to let go. You can't let go. You'll only confine it to yourself and your kith and kin. That's all. And the givers, as you rightly said, givers, they are grades of givers, isn't it? You know, the other day I was talking to Sethuji, and he was narrating of various businessmen, successful businessmen, well known. They give away majority of their wealth. So there is, even if you want to quantify it, it is not a quantum. It is never to be measured by quantum. The spirit of giving is determined by your detachment to it. But however, let's put that to test. No, if you are truly detached to it, as everybody is saying, as Sushma is saying, it is judged by your ability to part with it, ability to give it away for the other needs, because it can only serve me a certain value of adding a tangible sense objects to me. That's all. Gross wealth can only give me gross objects, and how much of the grossness would I go on acquiring? So once you understand there is no end to that acquisition, what would you do with the wealth rightfully acquired? You will learn to part to the other's benefits. Now, in that realization that I don't want to acquire and aggrandize and amass wealth, I want to serve by parting to those who are in need. In that, there are grades of givers. Considering we all are givers, the benefit of doubt is considering we all are givers. So, to what extent are you accumulating? To what extent are you giving? There are givers who give all that they have. There are givers who just give to just satisfy their conscience. Now, are you a beginner as a giver, or are you a personification of a giver? There are these two extremities. Would you be associated to be a symbol of a giver, or you do give as a mere to appease your conscience? That's for you to find out. But a giving only starts when you have developed a right value for wealth. If you are, and when you develop the right value, you will develop a detachment for it. Remember that. A wrong value is a false value where you develop a possessive attitude. In fact, in all possessions, as we understand, you don't become the possessor. It is the possessed that possesses you. So in many a time, you are not the owner, it's the wealth that is the owner. That wealth possesses you. Because you lose your status, you become a slave. Yes, Hariji.
Guruji, here the Rishi says by renunciation of wealth, some attained immortality. Does he mean here the wealth? Is it material wealth or spiritual wealth?
So you don't renounce spiritual wealth. For God's sake, don't do that. You only have to renounce. When we say renounce, it is always getting rid of something and getting established in something. So there's a twofold to it. But the very word renunciation is to drop. So here they are telling us to give up your false value to wealth. And if you remember last week when we said, why does he say some have attained? So this practice is prescribed for those who cannot do what? Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana. Those who can't have the capacity to do dhyana, means those who are not introverted people. The introverted people will comfortably do Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana. Those who are not introverts, they become the extroverted people. The extroverted people are those who are plunged into action. They have more vasanas. They are less evolved. So this is a sadhana for those who are more prone to action. And when you are into action, you are driven by the fruits of your action, which is the wealth. So he's saying, renounce that fruits of your action. Renounce that wealth that you're running behind. And some have attained. In effect, he's saying, Karma Yoga.
No, I asked this question from a different angle. That the embodiment of moksha or freedom, the attachment to the spiritual knowledge. I'm talking, my doubt came from that angle. Renunciation is losing attachment. And if I get attached to my spiritual knowledge, then it may end in itself that I will be busy in acquiring, lengthening my spiritual knowledge and getting attached to it, like attachment to my guru. So I just thought whether the Rishi has meant here spiritual wealth too, that there is just like how you taught us in Ishavasya Upanishad, remove the golden disc he is commanding?
Sir, I wouldn't extend it, but you could apply it to all levels of your personality, your physical, mental, intellectual,
Okay.
if you need to. But here, the specific context of wealth here, dhanam, here refers to material wealth. And as he says, it is meant for those who have. So this is not a general application to the introverted people, because they are not running behind wealth.
They run after spiritual accumulation. That is, this class, that class, here, this, that, and to run after
If-
from morning to
If,
evening.
sir, if it applies to you, apply it, sir.
Yeah.
The text is not saying so. The text is not saying so. If you think
Okay.
it applies to you, take it that way.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah. Thank you.
So you may have to stop running behind so many gurus. The
Yeah,
solution.
it is. Yeah.
But come once in a while, come to this guru also.
Sure.
Right, sir. And somehow attain immortality. So it's not an experiment. Some have actually reached that state. Okay. Right. So let's move on. We'll take up the third mantra. Parenanakam nihitam guhaya vibhrajate yadhyatayo vishanti vedanta vijnana sunishchitarthaha sannyasa yoga dhyataya shuddha sattvaha parenanakam nihitam guhaya vibhrajate yadhyatayo vishanti vedanta vijnana sunishchitarthaha sannyasa yoga dhyataya shuddha sattvaha. That which is higher than heaven, parenanakam nihitam guhayam, seated in the cave, vibhrajate, it shines resplendently. That the sages, the ascetics enter. Those who are well established in Vedantic wisdom. That's a beautiful line. Vedanta Vijnana Sunishchitartha. Get a hold of this word. One word. Vedanta Vijnana Sunishchitartha. Which means those who are well established in Vedantic wisdom. Sannyasa Yoga. Sannyasa Yoga is through the yoga of renunciation. What are they doing it for? Shuddha Sattva. To become that state of pure Sattva. Trans Sattva. Pure Sattva is trans Sattva. It's transcending the guna, which is the self. So that which is higher than the heaven, seated in the cave, shining resplendent, which the sages enter. Who are those sages? Those who are well established in Vedantic wisdom. And why are they doing it? To attain that pure sattvic state. And how do they do it? Through the yoga of renunciation. A very wholesome, complete mantra by itself. Tat, that, parena, higher than heaven. Yes, ma'am. That Brahman is higher than heaven. Ramji, if I want to ask you this simple question, all through your life, I'm sure you've heard many stories and parables. What is your understanding of heaven, sir, in a nutshell?
Namaste, Guru.
I know that you didn't expect this question to you.
I know, sir. When we were very small, we were told that if we do good things in life, we will go to heaven. And then we were told that if you go to heaven, you will get nice food, nice drink, nice
What
atmosphere.
drink is that, sir? I don't know. I just had a sip of a
So,
drink. I just drank water, so I don't know what drink you're talking about.
sir, heaven is inhabited by the suras, the devatas, and they do surapanam. Surapanam is referring to the drink that they drink, which is actually in our local language it is called whiskey. Okay.
Oh, see, somehow intuitively I knew that you would know a lot in detail of this heaven, sir. So therefore I sought your wisdom, sir.
Yeah. So where all the pleasures, you are blessed with all the pleasures, and you will not face any hardships. That is heaven. Okay. So that's what we were told. Nice girls will be dancing, and then the Indra will be sitting there, and all the devatas will be there. So that is what we were told when we were young, so that we are encouraged to do good things in life. But now I realize that all that is attached to a desire. Okay. So that description is all only increasing desire, not reducing desire, actually.
Right. Okay. So I give you 10% marks for the description of heaven, sir. So now if you extend it, so the word come, I'm trying to understand the word parena nakam.
Nakam,
Parena means higher than, nakam is heaven.
yeah.
Now if you break this word nakam, the first word is come. So the word come means, you know what the word come means? Anybody? Yes, Ramji, thank you. Vijayaraghvanji, what does the word come mean? Any idea? I thought you were attempting to say something.
No, Guruji, I'm ignorant.
No problem, sir. So the word come means joy. In Sanskrit, the word come means joy or happiness. Come. If you word add a to any alphabet in Sanskrit, it's opposite. So come is joy. Come is no joy, which means sorrow. Come is joy. Come is no joy, is sorrow. Now you add the word na. Na akam. Na akam, which is nakam, which is not no joy, is heaven. Nakam means heaven. I'm only giving you, breaking up the Sanskrit words, how it all adds up to that. Harishi, if you can just capture it for us, sir. Come means joy. Come. Come means no joy, which means sorrow. Na come, which is nakam, which means not no joy. Not no joy means what? Not a sorrowful state means heaven. Reddy Garu, I think you have clinched that equation, sir.
Yeah, I don't know whether I clinched it or really ventured into that, but I could not be able to. When you have an answer, Guruji, come means joy, na come
Yeah.
means no joy. That is very
No.
clear.
No. Come is joy. Akam,
Come is no joy. That is
which
nothing
is
but
sorrow.
sorrow.
No, you
Na,
add na to it. Na
yeah,
come.
not no joy.
Ah.
Why we need to repeat this word when we have already getting a meaning from these first two words? When
No,
we
sir.
say one is joy, one is no joy.
So that is the Sanskrit, sir. Nakam has got 3 words in it.
Yes.
Kam, na. So when you add na plus kam, na plus is na kam. We are just breaking it. So kam is joy, akam is no joy, na akam is not no joy.
Okay.
So this is the most basic of Sanskrit mergers. So actually, there are 3 words. That's what we are trying to say. Even though when we chant as nakam, it's when you break it up in sandhi, there is 3 words there.
Got it.
And there's so much meaning in that. I tell you, the rest of the class, I can talk of that word, nakam. We are not even talking of parena. Parena, he's saying, is greater than
Heaven.
nakam. Correct. Greater than heaven. We're not even talking of greater. We're talking of nakam only. Now, your online neighbor very beautifully described, because your photos appear next to each other. That's why I said online neighbor. Ram Garu has beautifully described heaven, which is nakam. Now, can you describe akam? What is akam?
It's sorrow. There's no joy.
What is that?
It's we talk about more of like we would talk come is in a pleasure, is the more of pain. The sorrow is nothing but pain.
What is that? What are the shastras in your scriptural study, in your association of this wisdom? What have you learned of akam?
I think I just got cue from Rajima saying it's a hell.
See, the problem with too much wisdom they have, they can't. I would like to say a word which my daughter used to say whenever she say come back from kindergarten those days. Say, my teacher told me zip your mouth. Just zip, no talking, zip your mouth. So I think Rajima will understand that language, being a teacher all her life. I'll have to tell her to politely say zip your mouth. Until you're told to unzip, zip it and keep it that way. Okay? See, when you talk the language of a teacher, she understands immediately. Sir, what is sorrow, sir? What is sorrow?
It's short of your expectations. Are we talking about the pain or unfulfillment of desires? It could be sorrow.
All right. Unfulfillment of your expectations or desire is sorrow. All right. Okay. We leave it at that, sir. Okay. Right. Vijay ji.
Guruji, I'm just curious. Does this mean that, not no joy is not exactly joy? I think it's neither joy nor sorrow, but a total deep sense of contentment or peace, which cannot be easily described. And coming to earlier, whatever we were discussing in Bhajagovindam also, is that if you do something even for others unselfishly, I don't use the word selfless, you are expecting some happiness out of it. But being selfless is a matter of second nature, just doing it without getting happiness or sorrow. Of course, you don't get sorrow when you help others. So is this a indescribable sense of peace or contentment?
It is. Therefore, we are lost for words. Therefore, he says,
Very
"Parena."
difficult to say that it's not a joy, no joy. I mean,
Sir,
at the end of the day, it's not able to, not getting into an exact word for it.
you're right, but that's the reason there are two words. Parena is higher. Nakam is heaven. So he is talking in fact of three worlds here. If you carefully analyze, there are three worlds he's talking about. One world is about Parena, which is the highest, which is Brahman, which is in your rightly you say it's indescribable. You can't capture that ecstasy or bliss. Then he's talking about Nakam, which is the heaven. What is the other world he's talking about? Bliss is Parena. A state of joy is heaven, which is no sorrow. And third is the state of sorrow. So he's talking of sorrow. He's talking about a state of no sorrow. He's talking of a state greater than no sorrow, which is Parena, the highest, which is Brahman. Therefore, my question to Reddy Garu was, what is your understanding of Akam? What is your understanding of the word sorrow? What do you understand by that? We call it hell, but what is that world he's talking about? Which world he's talking about?
I thought Reddy Garu described it as falling short of our expectations.
He was right, but still I was wanting to know which world.
Tangible material cross world.
It is the world that you're living in, we are living in. So Shastras say, Reddy Garu, I'm just following back. I don't know where it appears. Anybody has a quick reference, remembers that, please bring it out. In the Gita, if I'm not wrong, he says he describes the world as wombs of sorrow. Any happiness that you draw from the world, he calls it as wombs of sorrow. Wombs of sorrow means what, sir? It's only future sorrow for you. Any happiness today that gives you happiness is only future sorrow for you. Isn't it? So they call the world as sorrow, which is Akam. Akam, there is no thing like happiness in the world. It's rather difficult to swallow that pill, isn't it? All our lives, everybody is running, chasing for happiness. But yet, all our lives are infested with sorrow. Because, as Reddy Garu fall back to what he said, full of desires and expectations. And the world only contributes to your level of mental agitations. The disappointment or unhappiness. So, Parenanakam, he talks of the three worlds. Brahman, heaven, and the world. The world is sorrow. Heaven, Nakam, where there's no sorrow. I'm not spelling it out. In the next mantra, he talks of a world called Brahmaloka. So when we come to the next mantra, I'll explain that in a greater detail. When is one transported to Brahmaloka? When is one transported to a world beyond Brahmaloka? Ramji, don't miss that section of the text, because there are many lokas, sir. There are different, like a lift goes up to like heaven 1, heaven 2, heaven 3, heaven 4. On the Madri level, different heavens are there, sir. There is something called as the Pitraloka, the Indraloka, or the Swargaloka as they call. And then there's a Brahmaloka, and there's a Loka beyond that. You know, it's like where certain apartments you have the lift access which goes into the suite, into the apartment. You know, that is beyond Brahmaloka. Only you have access, nobody else has access. So hopefully I'll get to that today, sir. You know. Yes, Vijayji, anything?
I thought the concept of heaven is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, people describe to me, my mother used to describe, when she used to describe heaven, it had a certain characteristic which she thought it was most important for happiness in life. And we also have the, Somabana heaven. I mean, it depends on who thinks about what he values most in a material way.
But now we are redefining that as
That is true.
As sorrow. What your mind makes you feel as joyful or pleasure driven, it's all a trick of a play of your mind, isn't it?
Correct.
Right. Yes, Hariji.
Vijay, if you ask me what is the definition of happiness?
I didn't ask you, sir. If you ask me, no, you are assuming. In case I didn't ask you.
Okay, the definition of happiness is
that you can begin that way. The definition of happiness is, I listen to you.
Happiness is absence of sorrow. We can define sorrow very easily. The state of sorrowness, that absolute mental agitation, stress, strain, etc., etc. But if we are asked to define what is happiness, it is very difficult to define happiness. All that I can tell you is that absence of sorrow is happiness.
Now I can describe that state. Should I? If this continues, I will be in depression. That is sorrow.
Yeah. Only sorrow can be defined. Absence of sorrow is happiness.
Correct. No, that's the technical definition Hariji is giving, where happiness is defined as cessation of agitations. So agitation is sorrow. So where the absence of sorrow, absence of agitation, that we can capture. We can't capture happiness.
No. So that is the Nakam is the best definition what the Rishi has given.
Correct. Outstanding definition. Nakam. Outstanding. It's just simple words. And the language they have spoken, this is called an indirect language. I think even Harishji said double negative makes it positive. So it's an indirect language. And why are they speaking indirect language? The only objective of speaking indirect language is to make us think. This is an intellectual exercise for a sadhak. Otherwise, they could have put it in a direct language. So this is their intention. So Parena, Brahman is beyond heaven. Heaven is a state where you attain when you perform. Vijayji mentioned passingly, when you perform unselfish, desire-ridden, 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 work. you perform unselfish actions, the fruits of such actions, you get punya. You will get, you're benefited, rewarded for your sacrifices. You don't think twice of sacrificing, which was recommended in the previous mantra. Rajaya dhanena tyagena eke amrutattvamanashu. So you are happy to renounce it. But you want to get to Brahman, you have to go from unselfish to selfless. The selfless actions take you to Brahman. Amitama, do you remember the famous reference we always give when we talk of selfless actions? Anyone, the best understanding of selfless actions. Whenever we talk of selfless, you must perhaps it should flash back. Then your understanding gets very clear.
No, sir, sorry. It eludes me.
All right, no problem. It will be difficult for anyone to get it because it's something very, very technical. RM, unzip. Now you say.
The desire for the highest Guruji.
Yes, selfless. Selfless is
Anything to do with
self-realization.
yes.
Anything other than self-realization is with a desire. There is a desire. Either it could be selfish or it could be unselfish. But the best description of trying to understand someone in I think it comes in the Bhajagovindam also. Okay. Lakshmima? Parting with knowledge, Hariji, no, not necessary. I could have a very selfish desire while I'm parting this knowledge. I could have an unselfish desire. I want to serve this knowledge to you all. Or I could be saying, I'm parting this knowledge for moksha, for realization. Is it not possible? Three possibilities while I'm doing this very act itself. It's possible. So we can't generalize it. Ashrama, I said, mother raising a child, I would actually put it on the contrary, extremely attached. Mother is extremely attached to the child. How can I say mother is selfless to the child? If the mother is detached to the child, anything happens to the child, the mother says, I've done my duty. No mother will say that. She is fully attached to the child. In fact, the mother doesn't see a world beyond the child. That is attachment. Dhanam, Sudhakarji said, no. You know, the famous reference in the Shastras of reaching a state where you transcend the good and the bad. Selfless actions is where you transcend the good and the bad paths. So you don't perform actions which are good nor bad. The words which convey that is punya, apunya, vivarjita pantaha. You transcend a path which is beyond punya and apunya. Harishji, there is a path which you transcend punya and apunya. So punya, apunya, vivarjita pantaha. In fact, in the Bhajagovindam it comes. Let me. Ramate balon mattavadeva. No, he puts it there. Please fall back in the text, Bhajagovindam. He puts it there. I'm not able to get the exact reference of the verse.
Guruji, I think it's verse 22.
Verse 22. Yes, correct. Ratyacharpata virachita kantha punya punyavi varjita pantha yogi yogani yojita cheto. There you go. Ramate balon mattavadeva. Let's chant once again. Ratyacharpata virachita kantha punya punyavi varjita pantha yogi yogani yojita cheto ramate balon mattavadeva. So it talks of a sage who wears Gayatrima, can we have that please? So he's talking of a sage who lives a life, lives on bare minimum. That's why he says a shawl made of street rags, a godhadi. And then he says, whose path is beyond merit and demerit. This is what? Punya, apunya, vivarjita pantaha. Vivarjita means he is transcended, he is beyond the path of merit and demerit. So, thanks, Ma. So the selfless path is best understood is as a path which has nothing to do with the good and the bad. Now, can you think of an example? Harishji, think of an example of a path beyond the good and the bad. The path to infinity. No, I'm not talking of an example which conveys this, which portrays it. Any idea, UK?
Namaste, Guruji. Is it what I wrote, Guruji? Something similar to that? Doctors performing the surgeries and.
I wouldn't think of that. The Shastras are talking of it. I'm not talking of a modern example. The Shastras are talking of an example. We all know it. The beauty of it is you all know it. Yeah, Vijayji.
Sorry, Guruji, I'm not exactly responding to this, but I had a little doubt about where does the Robin Hood concept or syndrome come?
What about
the
himself?
story goes that, he was always helping others and by resorting to certain means, but provided it was not for his personal gain, would we still condone whatever means by which he was accumulating? There has to be, I don't know where there are any boundaries that have to be laid or any morals or any thing to be done.
So, it's always said it is the intention that justifies the actions, right? But that should not be an excuse where you take the law into your hands. So, therefore, we wouldn't say a certain act is right or wrong because action per se is neutral and an action is justified by the intention. Like talking about an example of a doctor, a patient dies in the hands of a doctor, yet you don't punish a doctor for that act because intention is to save the patient, yet the act was resulted in the death of the patient. You don't say that he has committed a crime. So in the same way, you can't brand an action as right or wrong or good or bad, but yet you can't take the law into hands and say, let me do, I'm a Kshatriya, I'm born into a Kshatriya clan, so let me take my ancestral weaponry, which is only adorning the walls, let me make good use of it to do some good to the society. I can't start taking weapons of destruction and say, let me do good to the society. Yeah. It would be misconstrued. It would, in fact, get you into more trouble. Other day, I heard that Reddigar who sent that to me. A 10-year-old boy in US was arrested because he was having a gun in his hands. Am I not right, Reddigaru? He was arrested by the police. Was it not right, sir?
Yes, Guruji. I think he's not one. He's having 3 or 4 magazines with automatic weapons. And he has spent upon making a statement in a posting, whichever maybe the social media posting, that I would like to go to school and kill the children.
A 10-year-old boy says that.
Yes. Maybe he's too intoxicated with the video games which they are playing. Most probably it's strongly got into the minds, the deep in the subconscious.
Totally unhealthy state of mind. Such a pity. What a pity. What a pity. Right. I'll come to that which I'm asking. Maybe Situji has an answer. Yes, Situji?
Hari Om Guruji.
Yes, sir.
Is it a soldier on the battlefield?
You have come to the context.
Yeah.
The context of the battlefield. Remember, the Bhagavad Gita was given Senayor Bhayor Madhye. The Bhagavad Gita was given sandwiched between the 2 armies.
Yeah.
Between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. So that is the context of the example, to that the Brahman, the Atma Vidya, the Gita was given in between Punya and Apunya, which was Punya is the Pandavas, Apunya is the unrighteous Kauravas. In between the righteous and unrighteous, there was this knowledge of Brahman given. So the path to salvation or liberation has got nothing to do with Punya or Apunya. So the example you got to fall back on, remember all the time, is the picture of the Gita being given in the battlefield between the 2 armies. So you drew us to it, Sepili. Punya, apunya, vivarjita pantaha. That's why he says Brahman is higher than heaven, it is beyond heaven. So when you're acting, so how do you get to that state of selfless actions, Harishji? So how to make your actions as selfless as possible? There is a path towards selflessness. So how do you get to that state? The effort should be where?
Directed to the higher with total total renunciation of the fruits.
So I don't know whether you were there. In one of the recent classes, I said, renunciation of action is superior to renunciation of fruits of action. Renouncing the desire is superior to renouncing the fruits of your desire, right? There are 2 things. Now we are talking of a path which is selfless, which is beyond the good desire and the bad desire, all right? Which is selfish and unselfish desires. Now let's say we're all in the unselfish category. Now, how do I take a leap from unselfish desires to selfless? How do I make that switch? The switch and the growth and the leap is, as you're acting, try to have as less a desire to prompt you to act. Isn't it? So take out that desire element. What desire are we talking about? Yes, Harishi, what desire are we talking about?
Total desirelessness is what you're saying.
Yes, but what, move away from what desire?
Worldly desires.
No, I'm talking of the desire to serve. You have a desire to give. You have a desire to be unselfish. You have the desire, isn't it? It is still a desire. So when you act on the desire to be unselfish, such unselfish actions give you punya. They don't give you moksha. You're only accruing merit. You're creating further account. Therefore, they say it is beyond heaven. It's beyond Nakam. What is beyond Nakam is selfless. And how do I get to selfless? Try to take that desire element out of that action. Perhaps we should give ourselves a question here. How to take out the desire element out of the action? Don't plunge into answers, but think. We all are unselfish. There's no doubt about it. You can raise your level of unselfishness. There's a lot of scope there. But from unselfish to selfless, we all need to make a serious switch. So the question is, Gayatri, what's the question?
How to take out the desire element of our actions.
How to take out the desire element out of, say, unselfish actions. That's qualified. So we're talking of a certain path beyond selfishness. We're all unselfish. How to take out the desire element from the unselfish desires / actions. Because if I perform the action with an unselfish desire, it is still binding. Isn't it, US?
Guruji, yeah, I just have a question. If you do unselfish action, that means you're already self-realized.
Another?
I thought so.
Can you come again?
No, when we from unselfish, our whole idea is from selfish.
So all the while you are thinking you are a realized soul, did you?
No, I
Oh
haven't been selfless yet.
No, I need to contact your family and community where I know where you stay, everything. I need to connect with them immediately and tell whatever she's proclaiming is false. Wherever when you perform an unselfish action, there is an unselfish desire that backs it. So there's still the existence of a desire when you perform unselfish action. Only selfless actions has no desire.
Yeah.
But I can perform selfless actions. That doesn't mean I've attained self-realization. No, the selfless action also is a path to self-realization. Selfless action is a path towards self-realization. So when a person performs a selfless action, he is
that
well and
called
truly
Transattva?
No. That is not Transattva. The Transattva is again the goal. This is still the path. The 3 types of actions you can perform: selfish, unselfish, selfless. So selfless actions takes you towards Brahman. I wonder why there's confusion.
No, the whole idea for us is to be selfless.
Yes. What is selfless? That's what the question is. Selfless is a state where you have no desire. You're acting, yet there's no desire.
The vasanalessness, isn't it? No.
No. Vasanalessness is Brahman. We are talking of a selfless state where there is no desire prompting you to act, yet you're acting. It is very much possible this current action is a selfless action. I could be teaching this knowledge in a spirit of selfless action. So there is no desire to serve as well here. I'm not doing it to serve this knowledge to you all. I'm doing this because it is my dharma, and this action takes me to moksha. So I'm oblating this action for self-realization. It's an oblation, it's an offering. So this action is being offered to self-realization. So there is no desire to serve this knowledge to you also. Even that is gone. So this action doesn't create any more desires in me.
Yeah, even in an unselfish state, you have no desire. You don't.
How can you say that? Unselfish desire is you say unselfish desire, no?
Unselfish to serve the knowledge.
That is as a desire. I want to help many people as possible. I want to serve this knowledge. I is there. There's still that element wanting to serve. When people don't come, you will go to depression. Oh, nobody is taking this knowledge. I want to serve these people. They don't understand how beneficial it can them to be. You are depressed. Why? Again, your desire is not met. Desire to serve. There are no takers. No complaints. Knowledge is never given, it's taken. So let them come and take. You are grounded in your wisdom. That doesn't mean you don't put in the effort. Every effort is being put into so that this knowledge can reach out to the people. But there is no desire prompting you. It's very difficult to understand an action without a desire. This is what we are trying to. So how do we, that's a question. How do you take out the desire element from unselfish desires or actions? That's when slowly you move towards selflessness. Okay. Vijay ji. Yes, sir.
Guruji, I think now the clarity is dawning on me a little bit. I think the statement which you made, Guruji, that unselfish actions give punya and selfless action gives you moksha, just about describes everything. And I think that also implies removing the desire to or happiness out of unselfish actions.
Yes.
The once we do it as what I possibly crudely called it second nature or reflex, it's just that you do it, because you got to do it.
Correct. Absolutely. You as Arunama has so beautifully said, you just do your duty, your obligation. It's your dharma, you just do it. But again, it loses that true meaning because we just use the word duty and obligation in a very casual manner.
No.
We don't do it in that true way,
I feel it has to become part of the DNA. Not at all easy. I mean, the most difficult, I suppose. But then.
But there lies the shift. Yes. So Ramji, if you can quickly summarize, sir. Parena Nakam.
That's very tough, sir, but I will try. Parena is beyond, Nakam is heaven. And so we are talking of going beyond the joy and no joy situations. And so that is beyond beyond heaven. And that is possible only through selfless action. If you can transcend the good and the bad. And so that is possible through selfless action. But then how do you achieve selfless action? Is by eliminating desires out of selfish actions that we carry out.
Eliminating the desire from the unselfish actions. Unselfish actions.
Yeah, unselfish actions. Sorry. Right. Unselfish actions we perform. Because unselfish actions give you punya, but the selfless actions give you moksha. So how to take out desire from unselfish actions? That is a real challenge on which we have to work. And that is, so any element of desire in our actions will not make it selfless. So I think we have to reach a state of desirelessness in any action that you do. That will become then a selfless action, which is directed only at self-realization.
Perfect. Very good, sir. So the word Parena Nakam, Akam is the path of selfishness, selfish actions. Nakam is the path of unselfishness. Parena is the path of selflessness. I repeat, Akam is the path of selfishness. Nakam refers to the path of unselfishness. Parena, the path of selflessness. Two innocuous words, but yet so much packed into these so-called, seemingly innocuous words. Amazing. You need a platform like this, an environment like this to even unfold all this. Otherwise, it's difficult. And I hope you all, followed through. We'll come back and continue. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.